You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. This one is our first Pats Nation post-game report of the 2024 season. Matt, it feels good. I mean, it doesn't feel that good because, Jesus, this game was really, really hard to watch for at least three quarters. But it's still nice to have Patriots football back.
Yeah, fans in the stands, some of them. A little bit of the atmosphere of a football game. Nice to see all the guys out there. We're going to have some takeaways from this one, but it is a win. I think that it's easy to have a lot of negative takeaways from the way the team looked tonight, but they were the better team, which is, it's bare minimum, but they did beat the team that was the worst in the NFL last year that didn't play starters as they should. So that's something at least.
Yeah, I just don't understand. And all right, so here's the thing. And Keegan tweeted this out earlier. Keegan Stiefel tweeted this out earlier. That Joe Milton is going to be responsible for some just awful, unforgivable takes tomorrow. Oh, yeah. The phone calls and maybe even the hosts. You never know in this town. But golly, the people are going to be going crazy about Joe Milton. And Joe Milton, by the way, looked great tonight. He was fun.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
I thought he played extremely well. Way better than I expected. But, I'm already seeing Joe Milton QB1, and it's like, all right, pump the brakes. It's like Malik Cunningham on steroids. Although I will say, Joe Hampton's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, look, it's I'm very happy with how he performed tonight. And I will say, the issue with Joe Milton is not his physical talent, it's the mental stuff. And obviously, we saw the physical talent out there, especially against third, fourth, fifth stringers from Carolina. He made them look like backups, which he should as an athlete. But the fact that he read the defense pretty well, he was largely pretty accurate when they had him throw the ball. That makes me feel pretty good. I'm not going to fool myself into thinking that he's a starting quarterback based on a couple drives at the end of a preseason game against guys who are not going to be making the roster. But it's what you want to see, and the only valid reason at this point for keeping Bailey Zappi on the roster is for cannon fodder because you do not trust this offensive line. Right. Which is a concern on its own. But that is a separate thing from the actual performance of the quarterbacks because he's clearly the worst of the guys out there.
I mean,
and the lowest ceiling too.
But yeah, I think that's the first thing we should talk about. And for me personally, I mean, I know we're going to do some, I guess we could just start it. Some stock up, stock down is what we're going to be doing. So just so you guys know, and once we get to the regular season, we'll kind of we'll be a little bit more specific. But as far as stock up, stock down is concerned, the first stock down for me is Gerard Mayo. I don't understand what you're doing. I just don't understand it. The preseason is an opportunity to see guys in an actual game setting and seeing what's happening. You had an opportunity to put Drake May out there and see what he could do in a game. You didn't do it. I didn't understand it. It makes no sense. There is no explanation. Whatever reason you can give for Bailey Zappi playing almost 3 full quarters for the Patriots, I don't want to hear it. It's stupid. We know he stinks. We know he's the 4th best quarterback on the roster. We already know all this. There's no reason to see him play that much. We didn't have to see him play at all in the preseason. It made absolutely no sense to me. Joe Milton at the end was great, and I'm happy he played. He should be playing. It's the preseason. Drake May should be playing the same amount that Joe Milton's playing. It made absolutely no sense to do what they did tonight. And I for one, have no idea what they were thinking. And by the way, It's the same thing for me where I look at it and say, we moved Caden Wallace at left tackle. We moved him out under the second team, and Vidarian Lowe's been playing left tackle. I think Vidarian Lowe stinks. And so what is Caden Wallace, who, by the way, looks pretty good tonight? I thought he looked pretty well tonight. And so I don't understand why he's not on the first team. It makes no sense to me. And some of the decisions they're making are I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the only explanation I can think of for playing Bailey Zappi that much again is a lack of trust in the offensive line, which I'm not going to stock down Gerard Mayo for that quite yet because we got 2 more preseason games. I want to see what else happens. It seems pretty clear to me that they didn't think this game meant very much. The Panthers clearly didn't either. The Panthers didn't play anyone of note really.
Right.
Offensively, it's had a couple receivers. Patriots played people of note for 2 possessions. It didn't feel like anybody in charge of the teams cared about this one. So I'm gonna see what happens next week. But yeah, I do really wonder the development plan about May right now because I don't know if this is their approach to the preseason. It feels like May is gonna get 3 preseason drives, and we're not gonna see him until 2025. That's kind of how that feels after this, which is a little bit of an overreaction for sure. But that's one way to handle this, and that's not necessarily the one I would. I'll have faith in them, but and on the Gerard Mayo thing, I think too many penalties tonight.
Yeah,
just not what you want to see there. It's week 1 of the preseason. Not going to overreact to it, but 6 penalties for 45 yards for New England, which is less than what Carolina had. It felt like the Patriots had more than that.
Yeah.
There were procedural ones too, and that's what you don't like. The Okorafor jumping off sides. What was that? May's second play?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's not
that's where it's tough.
Right. Yeah, and that's again, it's the preseason. It doesn't count, and I know, and there's people in the comments saying it, and I agree. It's the preseason. It doesn't matter. That's true. He also, tonight, was the first time he's taken a snap with the first team offense. And so, I understand. And listen, you want to say it's Jacoby Brissett's team, and Brissett is the guy, and we want him to be the guy this year, and we're going to sit Drake May this year, and we're not even going to think about playing him because he's the future of this team, and so on. Fine. I got no problem with that if that's your but at least give the kid an opportunity to show what he has. What if he gets out there and we're like, oh, this kid can ball, right? The kid's good. And we just haven't seen that. We haven't been allowed to see that, right? And that's the frustrating part for me. And again, it's preseason, so it doesn't really matter, right? Doesn't really matter. But it does at the same time, right? We want to see what these guys can do. And the other part of it for me is that Bailey Zappi's in there. Bailey Zappi's not a good quarterback. You have wide receivers and tight ends that are trying to make the roster. We have no idea what any of those weapons are going to look like this year. No clue. With Drake May and Joe Milton back there, you have a much better chance of getting those guys the ball in accurate spots in good positions than you do with Bailey Zappi out there. You just do. That's just true. And so, I would have liked to see that for those guys as well. Not just the quarterbacks, but also the running backs, also the wide receivers. It matters to them to have good quarterbacks on the ball. And I'm sorry, but Bailey Zappi is not a good quarterback. We know this. We already know this. I don't need three quarters of almost a borderline unwatchable preseason football to be reminded of that. Yeah,
and I feel like it also, a lot of this comes back to the offensive line.
Right.
The offensive line in New England. I'm not going to evaluate the first team too much because they were barely out there. But you get down the depth chart, didn't think it looked great. It wasn't, as abysmal as it has been at some points in the preseason the last 2 years. Yeah. But it wasn't good. And that was against depth guys for a bad defense. So I think it got above the lowest possible bar in terms of performance, but it doesn't inspire confidence. And I think it's pretty clear the way they're handling it means that they aren't confident in the line.
Right.
which is the biggest red flag of all right now, because, that's where you don't want May's development to really get hampered if he's playing behind the line. If they don't trust the line and they don't think they can put May back there, that could also hamper his development. Means you don't get to learn a lot about, your offensive weapons. I think for both sides tonight, this isn't just a New England problem, but for Carolina as well, both teams had real issues in the trenches. And I don't feel like I learned much about any of the skill position guys on either team.
No.
Did you learn anything about New England's secondary tonight? Because
Not
I
a
didn't.
thing. I would
get
say
tested once.
there were one of the few of the things I like to see. Marcellus Dial, I thought, played aggressively. I thought I saw some good aggressiveness from their corners, willingness to go up and make a play and make a tackle and get in the backfield and stick their nose in. I saw those things, so I'm happy about that. But like as far as coverage and things like that are concerned, there's no way to know. There's just no way to know, right? You're playing against third string, Jake Plummer's nephew. Is that actually Jake Plummer's nephew? I have no idea.
I'm not
Jack
sure.
Plummer has
I
any
don't think
relation
he's
to Jake Plummer.
I don't think he actually is related, which is crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me that he just should be. I'm just going to call him Jake Plummer's son. I don't know if he actually is or not, but he should be. But, fine. All right. He's out there. You don't have Bryce Young. You don't have Leggett. You don't have any of those guys. They got no one out there. And so you have no idea. I will say I was still impressed with the defense. I know you're playing against backups. I know, but they looked good. We'll see what happens on Tuesday when Philly comes to town. And I say Tuesday because I think Tuesday is going to be far more indicative of what the Patriots defense is going to look like. They're going to be playing against the ones on Tuesday. They're not going to be playing against the ones on Thursday. And so, I'm curious to see what that looks like. But again, some lower tier guys, they made some plays today, and I was impressed by that. And so, so we'll see.
Yeah, I did think, looking forward with the way that the coaching staff approached this game, I feel like that joint practice is going to mean way more than the preseason games. And I feel like, this is an indication to me that at this point, they think what's happening in practice is significantly more important than anything that happens in a preseason game. This felt like an opportunity for players to score bonus points or, maybe play themselves off the roster with poor play. I don't think anybody was really earning roster spots tonight, just the way the game played out. Hopefully, in next week we're going to get to see a little bit more of some of the other position groups. I will say if we want to do more stock up, stock down, I'll give my first stock down here, which is Mitchell Wilcox. I'm not sure. He had so many drops today. We've been hearing about drops the whole training camp. I just don't know how he makes the roster.
It doesn't.
At this point,
I don't see why. No.
And the other tight ends behind him weren't fantastic, but Jaheim Bell had one play in space where he was able to get out and run a little bit, and he literally just came back to being healthy. So he was, I think, he was the second to last tight end on the depth chart. I think only ahead of Jacob Warren, and I would hope that for the next game they're going to bump him up to third tight end to give him some looks. That said, we talk about the depth chart. I will just go off topic for a second here before you jump in. It did feel like the depth chart meant nothing tonight. And a lot of the outside of the offensive line, especially the skill positions, it felt like they were throwing out just random groupings of guys. It felt like seniority was big there. Seniority is the only possible way you can explain why Juju Smith-Schuster is getting reps with the starters and Javon Baker's playing well into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. And I know you want to see things from guys. I think Juju's going to get cut. And so I think, maybe let's see if you can do something out here and maybe we can trade you or whatever, right? But I just think, it's bad. By the way, people saying that we have the worst offensive line in football. Holy crap, look at Carolina. Carolina is the worst offensive line in football. But
look at the other side of the ball, yeah.
Yeah, they were terrible. But, my thing about, and I think it's interesting, the Mitchell Wilcox thing is a good point. Like, Jacob Warren didn't really do anything. LaMichael Pettaway looked downright bad today. But Mitchell Wilcox almost seems useless out there. Like, it just, I don't know. I just, the tight ends outside of Hooper and really, if we're looking at tight ends, it should be Hooper, Henry, and probably Jaheim Bell. Because Jaheim Bell at least has some upside to those guys. I just don't get it. And so that's if you're talking about keeping tight ends, that's who I'm keeping. Are those three? And the other ones for me, you know, I'm good with jettison all three of them, to be honest with you.
Well, and if Jaheim Bell doesn't earn a roster spot for you, and you think he's a practice squad guy, or just doesn't do well, and you don't want him around, I think you're keeping two tight ends and trying to claim somebody off of waivers or something. Which, again, I do look back at what's his face from last year, Pharaoh Brown, and let him walk.
Yep.
I still think that's curious because I thought he played well last year, but. That is what it is. I do think, I'm not sure if a Pharaoh Brown makes a whole lot of difference when you're trying to develop somebody like Bell, but he's still a question mark at this point.
Yeah, that was strange to me.
You got to stock up over there at all?
So one other one that's like a half stock up, half stock down. Jackass is booty back to his 2020 LSU form. And I thought in the first half, Kayshon Boutte was great. In the second half, Kayshon Boutte was not great.
Rough drops.
And, that long throw, both of those throws weren't easy catches. But they weren't easy catches. The long pass by Zappe was not an easy play. He should have had it. I don't think he approached the ball in a strange way. I don't know if he saw it until the last second. I don't know what happened. It just seemed like he just didn't get his hands up in time. And so that I didn't love. And then, he's getting hit on the one to Milton, and he's got to extend for it. It's over his head. But, those are the catches that he should be making. We saw an almost identical throw to Jalen Polk in the first half that he caught for a first down. And so, if I'm looking at Kayshon Boutte, I'm wondering, well, what does he give me that other guys don't give me, right? Tyquan Thornton didn't have any catches tonight. But Jacoby Brissett underthrew him. That's a touchdown. That's a touchdown.
If
Brissett throws it to him in stride, he's probably scores a touchdown on that play. And then, so he goes into the stat sheet with 0 catches, but had one potential explosive play that didn't happen. And so, it's one of those things where I look at it and say, do I want Tyquan? Do I want Kayshon Boutte? If they're both going to be inconsistent, right, which Boutte was inconsistent last year, it seems like he's inconsistent still. If they both can be inconsistent, I want the guy that can give me something that no one else can give me, right? And so that's kind of the way I look at it. And listen, Mr. Snoopy, you can be upset at me for making an excuse for him. He was wide open. He had 2 steps on the defender. That was a touchdown. What do you want me to say?
More importantly than him, streaking open down the field, that it was, a press alignment, and he's able to get by it quickly. That looked like a different athlete than some of the Taekwondo reps that we have seen.
And that doesn't mean
how often have we seen, Taekwondo build as this super fast player, then you go out on the field, he doesn't look fast. He looks like he's stuck in the mud out there at points. He looked. It was only one play, but he looked fast there, which we haven't necessarily seen from him.
Right.
And he repped with the starters and sat with the starters. So that tells me his roster spot is probably safe at this point.
Yeah.
Unless, that's obviously the case with Juju as well. So maybe it isn't a guarantee.
True.
But
that's true.
Yeah. And I thought, Boutte did well with his opportunities. He made a difficult catch and dropped some he should have caught. And it's, that's the type of guy where he's just going to be a fringe roster player. And I thought he did help his case tonight, but he didn't help it as much as he could have.
Right.
And there's definitely a little Trey Nixon there in he made some plays, but he didn't quite do what. And this is what we were talking about with Nixon before when he did get caught. It was like a lot of that same it's good and bad.
Well, and like I said, you're getting the same from Tyquan Thornton too. Like, it's not like Tyquan Thornton is out here lighting people up, right? Like, he had one good rep. So, you're going to get in. If I'm going to get inconsistent play from both guys, which it seems like I'm going to take Thornton over Boutte because he does things that no one else on the roster can do. Will he do it all the time? No. That's why he's the 6th wide receiver on the depth chart, right? But if I put him in there's a chance we can hit a long pass play because he has speed that no one else has on the team, right? As opposed to Kayshon Boutte does what Jalen Polk and Javon Baker do. He just doesn't do it as well. So, what do we do?
I think Thornton has been more productive in camp against higher quality players. Like, he's been playing with the ones all camp. Boutte's been playing with the 2s and the 3s. So,
Right.
Yeah, which, speaking of playing with the 2s and the 3s, Javon Baker, I mean, he played well into this game. I didn't really feel like he made that much of an impact.
No, it was one. So the one play, and of course, we haven't seen the all 22, and I'm curious to see it. The play where and you tweeted about it, where Zappy just kind of dove into the line. It's not good. But that looked like a single read to Javon Baker. That looked like I'm running a route. It's a comeback or a sit route right at the first down. And if he's not open, I'm taking the sack. And again, I have no idea, right? But that's what it looked like to me. And Baker doesn't get open, right? He had another drop. I think he dropped a pass. He didn't drop a pass, but he let, I think, a linebacker beat him to the spot and knock the ball away. And so, and again, it's one game. We don't know. He's made great catches in practice, but that's something that I would like to see more from him. I thought Polk made a few nice catches, and again, he didn't do much. He had 14 yards receiving on 2 catches, but he did what we've seen him. He's got great hands. He's going to catch the ball, even if it's a contested catch. He's going to catch the ball, and so that's the type of thing that I was excited to see from Polk. But again, he's not a game. He wasn't a game breaker out there. It wasn't like, oh my God, look at Jalen Polk. And so, so those are the things for me. Yeah.
Let me see if I got another stock up in here.
Before you do that stock up, let's take a quick break because we don't have super long here. We got 2 breaks to take.
Yeah. So more good news after the break.
Yes, exactly. Stock up after the break. I like that.
Yes. Nothing beats the sights and sounds at Fenway Park when the Sox take on the Yankees. From the smell of good Fenway Frank to the cheers of the crowd, there's no better way to spend a summer evening. And with Game Time, you can make sure you're there. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The Red Sox return to Fenway from the All-Star break in a few weeks to host the Yankees and Mariners, and using the Game Time app, you can quickly find the best value tickets for any game by looking for the blue check mark on the map. And with all-in pricing, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right, Matt, what do you got for your second stock up?
Yeah, let's go a little special teams here. How about straight out of The Office, straight out of Dunder Mifflin? Let's talk about David Wallace, the punt returner. He had the first splash play of the season with that big punt return that set up the game's first touchdown. And, I don't know if he's, stock upping into a roster spot yet.
Right.
But those are the kind of things that get some attention. And, maybe that's what gets him a practice squad spot this year. And that'd be a great story for him to stick around this team.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That was a lot of fun. It's fun to see guys like that out there. Still got a lot of work to do as far as a wide receiver is concerned. But, making plays, look, that's how Julian Edelman got on this team. That's how Gunnar Olszewski got on this team. That's how guys make their way onto a roster. Now, I think you have a punt returner in Marcus Jones, and I love Marcus Jones as a punt returner. Here's the thing with Marcus Jones. He gets hurt, right? He's been pretty injury prone for the Patriots.
That's why he's not playing. Why didn't play tonight?
Correct. And so do I want to, if I think he can be a piece defensively, do I want that guy who gets hurt a lot back returning punts for me? I don't know. If I have another option returning punts, I maybe would prefer that. So, and again, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's something where he sticks on the practice squad and maybe next year he becomes that punt returner. Who knows? So I don't think he's going to be getting claimed off of waivers or anything like that.
No.
So
no. He is not a guy you have to worry about fitting through.
Right. And so, and I think that's, but hey, look, all the kid can do is go out there and play well. And he played well. Mm-hmm. And, he's coming from a D4 school or something like that, so like in the middle of nowhere. So good for him, good for him for showing out a little bit. And, I felt like David Wallace had a little bit, like you saw some highlights and you're like, okay, now he's playing against lower competition, so he should be dominating, which he was. But it's fun. It's cool at least to see that he can do some of those things. So
yeah. Can I throw in another stock up while I'm at
do it?
Jaquay Jackson. Obviously, Joe Milton's going to be the guy that gets the low on that touchdown pass. That was a hell of a double move from Jaquay Jackson to sell that and get vertical. And he's a guy they signed late as an undrafted free agent at Rutgers. Wasn't super productive in college, but, that was a good moment. And maybe that's the kind of thing that gets him a little bit more playing time earlier on in a game, later on in the preseason or in camp. Give him a little bit better shot at even sticking around on the practice squad, Maybe he's the team's 8th or 9th receiver or 6th or 7th receiver or whatever on the practice squad. And it's a guy they can call up for games when needed or, potentially develop into something. But I liked what I saw. And even if this is all it is, it's a great moment to have. So
yeah,
shout out to him.
I agree. Another stock up would be O'Shane Ximines, who had a bad play at the beginning of the game. He went inside on an outside play. Mayo and Judon were coaching him up about it afterwards. But, I did think that overall he played pretty darn well. He got after the quarterback a few times. I think that he's a guy for me that was a little bit of an underrated signing for them. And, I thought that he could be a guy that kind of fills in that edge defender role. Remember now that, they're probably going to be without Christian Barmore this year. If they need to bump someone like Keon White inside on pass rushing situations, of course, right? Ximines could give them a little bit of depth on that outside, on the edge. And I think that's kind of what he's going to be for them. I think we saw a little bit of a preview of it tonight. It's not perfect. Again, he's playing against backups, but I thought I was happy with what I saw from him today because he's a guy that I expect to be on the roster. And so I was happy with what I saw from him today.
Well, I will say, with obviously Judon's situation up in the air, which he seemed to be very engaged tonight. That made me happy. Yeah. Barmore out. And we haven't talked about it really once on here, but Sion Takitaki still has not practiced. He's on the PUP list. I think that highlights the fact that this team did not re-sign Mac Wilson. And O'Shane Ximines seems like a guy who can fill in that role for you. And, when you go to a pass rush package on 3rd and long, maybe it's Keon White inside and Daniel Aquale out there and, Judon and, Uche or Ximines, or you put all 5 of those guys out there when you rush the passer. And he can play special teams. He can rush the passer for you. He's got a little bit more weight than Mac Wilson, which I think probably his benefit here. So I have a hard time seeing him not making this roster right now with how he's played.
I agree.
Really solid backup for them.
Yep, I agree. And again, not a starter, not a guy that's going to come in and light the world on fire or whatever, but a good depth piece for them. I think that's kind of what I expect from him. 2 other guys I wanted to chat about real quick, and Old Man Ma pointed them out here, was Layden Robbins, and I thought played pretty well on the inside at guard. And I mentioned it before, but Caden Wallace I thought played well on the outside. I thought he played better on the left side than the right side. But I thought he looked pretty good tonight overall. And I think that now we should start looking at it and saying, okay, Vidarian Lowe's left tackle, sure. But we've seen some good stuff from Caden Wallace. Now, I would put Caden Wallace in practice on Tuesday against the ones. Philadelphia is a really good defense. Give him some reps at left tackle against Philadelphia and see what happens. Right? You're in practice. You're not risking Jacoby Brissett's health. You're not risking Drake May's health. Get him in there against the number ones and see what he can do against a really good defense. Because I think he's earned that. He was that number 1 left tackle, and then for whatever reason, he just gets bumped down to second. I don't understand what happened. No idea why. They never gave a reason. He just did. And so I'd like to see him get an opportunity to be that guy at left tackle. And again, who knows? But that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, that'd be nice. It was weird because I did notice some bad Caden Wallace reps, and Vidarian Lowe wasn't out there long enough
Right.
to really get a read on him.
Yeah, just 2 series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next Tuesday. I think we're going to learn a lot more about the offensive line. Then did not feel great about anybody out there. Like it wasn't. I felt like by the end of the game they were definitely overpowering Carolina's backups, which was good. Especially once they put Terrell Jennings out there, who I think Terrell Jennings goes in the stock up category here as well.
For sure.
But I got to see more quality reps from everybody before I start to feel good. I didn't like that Caden Wallace and Javon Baker playing that long into the game. I think also was like, oh, why are they still out there? So
Yeah.
we'll see. Everything about Caden Wallace is weird. Him going from repping his first team left tackle to playing in the fourth quarter at right tackle in a preseason game in like a week is I don't quite understand. Hopefully they know what's going on the inside because that doesn't seem to make sense from the outside.
Right.
But to Terrell Jennings, he had a nice carry in there. He runs hard. He's got some quick feet. He had some shiftiness about him. 6 carries, 38 yards for him. I liked what I saw. And I think there's a real open competition right now for the number 3 and number 4 running back spots for who they want to carry. And I didn't think Kevin Harris looked bad. I didn't think Michael Hasty looked bad. I thought Terrell Jennings looked good. So when it comes to depth of running backs, I'm totally fine with any 2 of those 3 guys right now, which I feel a little bit better about the depth there than I thought I would after this game.
I agree with you. Hasty, I think, looks really shifty. He looks like he's got some burst to him. And I thought Jennings ran well. He ran hard. And Kevin Harris, we've seen run hard before. He's like he's slimmed down a little bit. The question really for me is, who can catch the ball out of the backfield? I think Hasty probably is the guy that can most easily and most effortlessly catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think that kind of puts him on this roster. And then Jennings and Harris are fighting for that last spot. And, maybe Harris gets it and Jennings ends up on the practice squad. But I think we saw enough from both of those guys to kind of say, like, hey, there's a legitimate argument for these guys being on the roster at some point. And, we don't know. But that's kind of how I felt about both of those guys tonight. And again, no guarantees. It's not like they're going to be out there starting for the Patriots anytime soon. But for the most part, we're talking about, the bottom of the roster. And really that's what preseason is about, is the bottom of the roster, right? Those guys that are roster bubble guys, are they going to make the roster or are they not? We don't know, right? And that's what I like to see in here. Are those guys. And then, every now and again, a guy flashes. I mean, do you remember, I don't know if you might be too young to remember this, but Victor Cruz against the Patriots in his rookie year had 3 touchdown catches in the last preseason game against the Patriots. And he was from UMass. So, of course, that was a big conversation. It was against the Patriots, 3 touchdown catches. It was like, oh, my God, this guy. Well, he got cut and ended up on the practice squad that year for the Giants. And, of course, he ends up being a very good wide receiver for them, wins, I think, 2 Super Bowls with them. I think he was on both the 07 and the 11 teams.
No, I think he was a rookie in either 08 or 09.
Oh, okay, so maybe you're right. But either way, that's a guy that, flashed in the last preseason game and still made it to the practice squad and ended up being a good player. So, not that he did it that year, he ended up doing it the next year, but every now and again, you can see a guy that kind of breaks through and makes something of himself, and you see a little bit of it in the preseason. And so, I'm interested to see if any of those guys that we saw tonight could do that. But again, the majority of it is the bottom of the roster, guys that are fighting for roster spots, who gets it and who doesn't. And I think that's an interesting. That's what I like seeing.
Yeah. Another stock up for me is Del Pettis, the safety. He's a guy who's done well in practice, and I noticed him flash around the ball a couple times tonight. Especially Joshua Bledsoe is not locked into a roster spot at safety, and Pettis is a guy who I think could take his spot either on the 53 or on the practice squad. AJ Thomas too. I didn't notice him as much tonight, but I did see that 35 jersey flashing around at points. So I think, Josh Bledsoe might have a roster spot taken from him depending on how the preseason goes. Did Bledsoe even play tonight? I don't remember seeing him.
I don't believe he did.
No. Is he hurt right
now?
I
think he's been out. And the real thing about the biggest thing for me about Bledsoe
Oh yeah, he's hurt.
is he is hurt. But the thing for me is that last year in the preseason and in training camp, he was everywhere. He made plays all over the place. We were like, this kid's going to be a star. Like, he's going to be the next safety that comes on. And then he got into the games and he stunk, disappeared, never saw him, never did it. And so, like, that's, to me, that's one of those ones where I'm like, all right, maybe this kid just doesn't have it, right? And when he actually gets in the game, he doesn't have a feel for the game. He just never really played well in any games that he played in, preseason or regular season. And so, for me, at least personally, I'm ready to move on from him. And, I thought this kid played well, man. He did, and so, and he's been kind of trending in that direction anyways. And so, I was happy to see that from him.
Yeah, I also think it's notable with Sion Takitaki still on the pup and Marte Mapu not practicing. Those are both guys that kind of play either linebacker or safety hybrid somewhere in that group. And he can't make the club from the tub is what they say.
That's
I don't
right.
think Takitaki is going to lose his job, but he might start the season on the pup list. We'll see what happens with Mapu, but if any of these depth safeties start playing well, we will see how the roster shakes out.
Right. And again, I've been saying since they drafted Marte Mapu, I've been saying he should be playing linebacker because sure, he's athletic, but he doesn't give you a supreme advantage at safety. He's not an overly athletic safety. He is an overly athletic linebacker. I think that's where he gives you the best advantage. And, Bill didn't want to do it last year. Mayo, but we don't know, right? We haven't seen him on the field, so we don't know how Mayo feels about it.
Yeah, it seems like he's been with safeties though in group stuff,
which is just
I'm not totally opposed to playing him there, but like if he's going to be a safety, you want him to be a hard physical safety. You want him like a true strong safety and not some
playing near the line and things like that, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's some kind of a nickel defender, almost bigger, but in the Miles Bryant role in some ways.
Yep. Another guy that made some plays tonight. Devin here mentioned number 44. That is Joe Giles Harris. Joe Giles Harris is a guy that I thought really flashed tonight. Again, we talked about it. We don't know what the linebacking core is going to look like. Who's going to be playing linebacker? Who's not going to be playing linebacker? Giles Harris, the guy that, could be sneaking into the bottom of this roster. He was active with his hands, knocked down a few passes tonight. I was happy to see that. And so, look, I mean, again, we're not talking about starters here. We're talking about guys that are kind of bottom of the roster guys that are fighting for a roster spot. But I was happy to see that from him. We saw a nice play tonight, a nice sack tonight from Christian Ellis, who is primarily a special teams player. But again, Gerard Mayo has said, he has publicly said he doesn't want to have too many guys on the roster that are special teams only guys. And so if that's the case, right? If that's the case, Christian Ellis ain't making this team as just a special teams guy. And so he's going to have to play a little bit of linebacker. Not that he's going to be a starting linebacker, but he's going to have to at least be a serviceable linebacker in order to make this team, regardless of how good he is on special teams. And so it was nice to see that. It's not like it was some great play, but it was a really nice swim move, knocked the hands away from the center, swim move, sack. It was a nice play.
I saw that 53 flashing out there, and I was thinking Kyle Van Noy was back on the team for a second.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was a very nice play. I was going to mention him in my stock up. One last stock down for me before we do another ad break here. I would say Armand Watts. It's a guy that they signed, to kind of be a Lawrence Guy replacement in some ways. He's a guy who's played well in the NFL before, and I only noticed him one time tonight, and when he was trying to chase down a run from behind because he didn't set the edge on it. And that might not have entirely been his fault. There might have been another defender out there, and it wasn't a great camera angle, so I'll have to go back and watch that. But he didn't stand out to me in any way, and I think he's a guy who, with other guys on the defensive line playing well, might not actually find himself on the roster. Right. I do have one more stock down before we take a break, actually, because I said the camera angle. That's the broadcast for tonight. Oh my goodness! It was I got what they were trying to do by having a bunch of former players on there to teach, but it's too many cooks in the kitchen and no defined leader. They had 5 color guys trying to cover the same game at the same time, and the camera kept cutting away from the game. It was a preseason game. Only like hardcore fans were tuning into this. He gave us some camera angles so we can see what's going on. The fact that offensive line has been one of the top stories all camp, and they essentially never talked about the line in depth, never gave pass protection breakdowns or run blocking breakdowns at any point throughout the night to give us a look at that and see what was going on there. I thought it was very disappointing, and I don't know, there's a lot of talking that did not contribute to my viewing experience. I can tell you that much.
Well, it almost felt like they were doing a post-game show during the game.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to watch the game. Tell me what's going on in the game, right? Like, and I
were
just
doing a podcast.
do that. And by the way, Zolak was very clear. Like, that's what they wanted it to be. Zolak said, there is no play-by-play guy here. We're talking. And it's like, okay, but can we do something more than that? It made no sense to me.
And that's not, I'm not going to blame any of the guys who were on TV tonight, because that's not them. It's whoever set this up as the idea for the show. And like, I feel like they lost the plot pretty early when it's Drake May's first play and they're cut into like a split screen so you can watch Paul Perillo and Brian Hoyer talk. And it's like, this is the first time we're seeing the number 3 pick on the field for New England. That should be where the attention
That's correct.
is. Like and this isn't about any of the guys doing the actual broadcast. It's going to be behind the scenes. It's going to be leadership there deciding this was the right idea. And whoever the director is in that room deciding, the camera shots they're cutting to. Every time I saw a play, I was just begging, can you please show a replay?
It was crazy. And again, I think the big part for me was, last year they did the McCourty cam, right? Or the McCourty, I forget what they even called it.
Mm-hmm.
The McCourty cast, I guess, like the Manning cast. And that was fine. I don't like watching that because I want to watch the game. But like, fine, you want to do that? Okay. But like now this year, they just basically made the whole thing the McCourty cast, and I just didn't. It just doesn't hit for me. I want to watch the game, and I want. Yeah, you're talking about things, but we're not talking about. We're not talking about what's happening on the field. You're just talking about random things that have nothing to do with what's happening on the field. Talk about what's happening on the field, right?
High-res views chiming in with almost lost it when they cut the camera during Drake's first 2 snaps. I was right there with you. I was losing my mind. Like, I don't especially when it's something like that, like you want to savor and take in the moment to a degree, and you didn't get that opportunity at all, which I feel like totally misses the point of why it's like it almost felt like WBZ trying to do their own Patriots podcast live during a game. And then I love Steve Burton, and I'm not going to hate on him at all, but then taking that much time during the game for the tribute to him, like it's great. He deserves it. It also, on top of everything else, felt like, okay, we're just here to talk about things that have nothing to do with what we're all here to watch.
Well, and that's the other part of it. If it had been a normal broadcast, I think we would have been fine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And so then that only adds to it. You know what I mean? So, but all right, as you said, let's take one more break, and then we'll come back and kind of finish off our final thoughts here. Mm-hmm. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week. From lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Now, for me, I'm combining the 2 sports that are going on right now. We got women's basketball, we got baseball. I'm going Caitlin Clark for for more than 3.5 3-pointers made, and Rafi Devers for more than 6.5 hitter fantasy points. Now, you're going to download the PrizePicks app today. You're going to use the code CLNS, and they're going to match your first deposit up to $100. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy. All right. So, look, ultimately, it's a preseason game. It doesn't count. Nothing matters from it, right? Like, no one cares. But at the same time, like, there should be an opportunity to see guys that we don't. And honestly, it's stupid. It's fan service, but like, yeah, the fans are showing up to the game. Imagine you went to the game tonight. I have season tickets. We donated our tickets to the Jimmy Fund. Some poor family went to that game and had to watch Bailey Zappi for 3/4. That's just mean. That's just mean. Like, you went to the game and you had to watch Bailey Zappi? Like, what the hell? You know, like, we should be watching Joe Milton and Drake May. That's what we should be watching. And Jake, and if you had stuck, if God, I mean, God help you, if you had stuck through that whole game and then you got rewarded by Joe Milton at the end. But like, you should have been, that should have happened all game, you know. And so that's, man, that was frustrating. And it's just, you know, again, we don't know what, and it's easy to criticize. Gerard Mayo's first ever, you know, game as a head coach. And so it's easy to sit here and criticize him and criticize what he was doing and everything like that. But like, man, you just feel like they could have done more. And they didn't. And that's frustrating.
Well, and this is something that Mayo addressed after the game. He said this was always the plan: one series for each, and then kind of divide up the rest. Is how it sounded. And it does also sound like that's going to be different next week. So I do wonder if this was hey, the offense isn't ready yet. We are just going to let them get their feet wet and let the backups take it from there. And then week 2 is when we're really going to get into it, which we'll see. I will say I was looking up CJ Stroud last year. Stroud played just 2 possessions in Houston's opener last year in New England. Then he played a half in their next game, and then 2 possessions in their last preseason game. And
Right.
May is, you know, here with Brissett as well. So, you know, it's not going to be the same division of reps, but I do wonder if we see something similar with Philly where it's, you know, Brissett gets maybe 3 drives against Philly, and then maybe May gets 3 or 4 drives against Philly, and then maybe Milton gets 3 or 4, and Zappi gets, you know, maybe 1 at the end if they have time for it.
Right. For the love of God, if I have to watch Bailey Zappi again for a half next game, I'm going to be so mad. You know, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they keep him through the joint practice and everything just to have another QB to do reps with.
That I agree with. Yeah.
But I think I'm okay keeping him through the Philly game. After that, I don't know why you're keeping him around. And
there's no reason they have to be on this team.
Did they have to cut the roster down to 75 and then 53, or it's just straight 53?
Just
now,
once,
right?
Yeah.
Which I will say I don't like that, but
well, I think it's strange.
I don't
I don't really love it either, to be honest with you. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, you're not getting anything for Bailey Zappi. Nobody wants Bailey Zappi. No, you know, no one's giving you anything for Bailey Zappi. And so, you know, it's not as though they're going to get something back for him. But, you know,
he'll probably leave New England and catch on to a practice squad somewhere else. And, you know, we'll see what he can do in another location. I wish him well wherever that next spot is, but there's no way they're keeping 4 quarterbacks, and Milton
it just doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to do it. Milton is a guy that's, you know, he's a lottery ticket, right? Yeah. Probably never going to be an actually good NFL quarterback, but you never know. If he develops into a guy, then you look at it and say, like, holy crap, this could be unbelievable. And by the way, somebody pointed out, you know, it's like RG3 and Kirk Cousins, and how Cousins ended up being better than RG3, and RG3 was a bum, is what they said. RG3 was not a bum. RG3 was fantastic. And then Mike Shanahan destroyed his knee, and he was never the same. And so
Washington,
and Washington, of course, Washington's field. But, you know, but that to me, that's one of those things for me that, like, yeah, well, maybe it is an RG3 Kirk Cousins situation, and you can trade Joe Milton and get something back, right? But, you know, I mean, that's we're a long way from that, right? But again, it's very obvious that Bailey Zappi is the 4th quarterback on here. There's no reason he should be on this roster. Now, Jack makes an interesting point here. would keeping Zappy make sense if they want May to sit the entire year? So if you're looking at it saying Drake May is not playing this year no matter what. No matter what happens, Drake May is not playing.
Basically, if Brissett gets hurt, we're not playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In that case, you're basically saying that we're going to waste 2 roster spots on quarterbacks who will not play, which is a questionable roster move.
I would strongly disagree with that. If that happened and you felt like Drake May needed more time, I would put Joe Milton in instead. I'm keeping Joe Milton as a developmental quarterback. And if you really felt like Joe Milton's not the future of this franchise, Drake May is, I don't want to waste Drake May this year. I guess you put in Joe Milton, but like to me, it doesn't make any sense.
If you're putting in Joe Milton before Drake May, that's gonna create its own issues.
100%. Or the other thing I would do is, okay, Jacoby Brissett gets hurt. No, now I'm going to put him on IR, and I'm going to pick up another quarterback to start for the next 4 weeks, right, until he comes off of IR or something like that. You know, I would just maneuver around the roster and just pick up some random guy, or I'd sign a quarterback to the practice squad and call him up, you know, for the game or something like that. Like, you know, he's on the practice squad. There are practice squad elevations and whatnot. That's what I would do. I would not waste a roster spot on Bailey Zappi, basically, no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know why we're doing it. Like, he's not making this roster. When you go from Bailey Zappi out there to Joe Milton, and you just see the difference in jump of the ball out of the hand when they're throwing it, like that first completion to Javon Baker on just a little hitch was like, oh, it has a very normal NFL play, and it felt a little bit different with Milton after watching his Zappi for 2 quarters or whatever.
Right. It just it makes no sense. By the way, Jay Thomas thinks I sound stupid right now, which is great. Good. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for being here, bro. Appreciate you.
That's my alt account typing in the chat. But Milton already, I think, has shown enough to me that there's no reason to keep him around, to keep Zappi around. Milton can do basic stuff and run around and try to create plays. I think he's better than like Malik Cunningham was at this point last year too.
Absolutely,
much better athlete, and probably more. I don't know if I'd say more accomplished passer, but I think a better passer. Like the issue for Milton, it's never really about his ability to like even make decisions. It's just accuracy and consistency for him. Like he has all the physical tools in the world. He just has never consistently been able to put the ball where it needs to be, despite having all those physical tools. So, that's something like Malik Cunningham was a worse decision maker at this point than Joe Milton is right now. There's a reason Cunningham went undrafted and Milton didn't. Right. And I'm saying this as somebody that really didn't like Joe Milton that much.
I know. And listen, the way he kept his eyes downfield, even when he's moving in the pocket, I was impressed.
I thought he had great poise.
Yeah. There's one thing I expected Des to talk about. By the way, Jay's saying that I'm, the worst player or whatever. Jay, listen, you name a time and place, I'll give you some buckets, man. We want to play some ball, I'll give you some buckets, brother. Like, go ahead. Anytime. You let me know. I play ball every Sunday.
Week 1 of the preseason, and Pat's already challenging people in the chat to
come play ball. I'll give you some buckets, man. I'll make you look foolish. It's okay. I got no problem with that. So Spectre Des is talking about can we talk about how Sly is winning the job? This was an interesting one to me. A 42-yard field goal. Joey Sly is out there kicking. To me, I don't understand why you're having Joey Sly. And again, this is another Draw Mail question. Why is Joey Sly kicking that field goal?
Well, I think they were having the kickers alternate because it was Ryland came in for the extra point and then Sly field goal, then Ryland goes out for an extra point. I think that was just their plan, was to have them alternate whatever opportunities.
But look, to me now, the issue that I had with Ryland last year was that he was a head case. He couldn't figure it out mentally. I want him kicking field goals. Extra points, fine. He was fine with extra points last year. I want him kicking field goals. And he wasn't. They attempted one field goal and it wasn't him. And I know you're probably right that they're alternating, but like to me, I feel like if there's a field goal to be had, it should be Chad Ryland.
The problem is that Joey Sly on his own isn't good enough to say, oh, well, if Ryland is bad.
No, you're not wrong.
So you have to test him too, which is where they're at. I will say I missed this in the stock up, stock down section earlier, but I have a little bit of stock down on the special teams and the kickoff returns in particular, the coverage.
Yeah.
The Panthers got 2 pretty decent returns out, I think, to the 30 or past the 30 against New England. And I'm not going to overreact to this. This is the first time anybody's doing this right now, so they're going to learn from this. But I didn't love that. And it seemed like the issue on both of them, we talked about it on the broadcast, they're having the most outside guys on the kick return, all the way on the outside. They're having them like loop back behind to play safety. But the problem is because those are the guys that are doing it, the edges are where the issue is. And both of the kick returns got around that edge.
Correct.
The guy who was originally out here was dropping back into coverage and then has to go back out there. So I wonder if we see an adjustment.
Yeah, the other thing too is the return, and I kind of pointed this out on at one of the practices or whatever, but most of the teams have their return players facing away, and they take a few steps towards the returner and then turn around and block, almost like they get a running start towards the guys. The Patriots haven't been doing that. They have their players facing the defensive guys, and there's like a go signal as soon as they catch it, and then they try to then go block. But it's almost like a static block instead of a moving block. And listen, there wasn't really many holes on either side, but I wonder if that's something that maybe they look into changing a little bit, because maybe it's a little bit easier if you give yourself a little bit more room in between, whereas that space gets filled up really quick. By that guy comes only 5 yards. So that space gets filled up awfully quick. So it's just, those are things that this is why we're looking at it, right? This is the whole reason why we play these games, so that we can see that and look at it and say, we didn't love the way that looked. Let's change it. So, so we'll see. And we'll see the changes that they make. I'm really excited about Tuesday. I think we're actually going to be together on Tuesday, maybe, potentially.
This is a big podcast news here. We've been doing the show together for 2 years now, and I've still never met you in person.
Nope.
So I'll change that on Tuesday, which is fun.
Yep. We're going to be going to joint practice together on Tuesday. And just a programming note, our episode this week will be Tuesday night instead of Monday night. That will be back in New York on Tuesday night, and we'll be recording again, just like we always do, remotely like this. But we will be together on Tuesday for the joint practices.
Against practice, come say hi.
And so, yeah, if you're at practice, come say hello to us, and we'll chat with you and whatnot. So,
yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other takeaways from tonight.
I don't think so. Not for me, at least.
Yeah, I think almost the absence of takeaways is in itself a takeaway. Like, I didn't feel like we learned a whole lot about either team, and I think big picture NFL, the Hall of Fame game, you never learn a lot from the Hall of Fame game, but it felt like nobody's playing in that. Nobody was playing in this game, really. It didn't feel like a lot of people played in the Giants-Lions game tonight, as far as I could tell, either. And that game finished 14-3 is the final score. So it kind of, we haven't talked about it, but this is a different preseason schedule than a lot of us are used to still. This is a new thing to have just the 3 preseason games. And it does kind of seem like a lot of teams are saying, hey, preseason doesn't matter that much anymore. Clearly, the Carolina, they're not investing a whole lot in it, and they're just letting the practice reps do most of it. And I do wonder if New England is doing the same to a degree, which is a little bit annoying. But also, if this is the standard across the league, I don't think it's going to hurt them. Right.
Thad made a good point about not seeing Belichick on the sideline. It was certainly a little weird not having Belichick on the sideline. So, by the way, one quick note: if you're going to be betting on the preseason, as I did tonight on Prize Picks, always take the under. Always take the under. Me, because I'm stupid. Javon Baker and Polk were both like 22 or 23 or 25 yards receiving, and May was like 65 yards receiving. I'm like, they'll definitely clip. No, they did not. No, they did not. Hendon Hooker I even picked because you had to have another guy from another team. And I was like, I'll pick the over on him too. It was like 90 yards or something like that. He threw for like 25. So in the preseason, always take the under if you're going. Always pick less. Not take the under. Always pick less if you go on Prize Picks, or take the under if you're on one of those other betting sites. No free ads, but one of those other betting sites.
Yes. Aside from we're talking about overs and unders, the other guys in CLNS, when they were doing their big group pod, did over-unders on how many quarters every quarterback was going to play this preseason. And I think Bailey Zappi already smashed with his total. I think his total is 1.5 quarters. So I think he already at least met or beat that. That was the expectation. I think they were talking 11 and a half quarters for Drake May. Maybe. How many quarters are there in the preseason? No, there's
11
only
and a half. That can't be right.
Yeah, there's only 12 quarters in the preseason, so it might have been 5.5 for Drake May. I don't think we're gonna hit that. That's
no way. No way.
Unless they give May a whole game, but
I doubt it. But we'll see what happens. So, anyways, it's a long way to go, right? I think Tuesday is going to be very indicative of kind of where we stand and how things look. Because again, that's when you're truly going to see the ones versus the ones. So I'm excited to see that on Tuesday. Thursday won't be a ton to see, although I will be there Thursday. If you're at the game on Thursday night, come say hello. I will be there on Thursday, but we're not going to stay the whole game. So we'll still be right after the game like we always are. But I didn't take my little guy to his first ever game, so that'll be fun.
Nice.
So,
hopefully he gets to see a little more Drake May than we saw tonight.
Yes, exactly. So let's hope. Anyways, that's all we got for tonight. Appreciate everyone coming on or coming through, I should say. Stick around because I just got a text from Mom. They're going on in 5 minutes, going live on 5 minutes. So stick around on the CLNS YouTube.
Who's going live next?
It is Taylor and Mike Cadlick. Yep, Taylor Kyles and Mike Cadlick. So stick around.
Those guys will have great stuff. They'll have all the notes from the press conferences that you guys are looking for.
Yeah, which will be nice. So that's good. So stick around for that. And we'll be with you, as we said, on Tuesday night, breaking down what we saw during the joint practices and also then previewing the game on Thursday night next week. All right, guys. Thanks again, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.